What's an experience you've had that you cannot logically explain? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We were in a town outside Puerto Vallarta on holiday. In the middle of an outdoor market was a small church that we decided to check out. For some reason, I felt really connected to it. I felt compelled to pray and light a candle. As we were leaving the church courtyard, a little girl across the small brick road was pointing at me, pulling her mother towards us, and she was calling me, Coco, Coco. The mother was pulling against her, saying, ¿Quién? No la conocemos. ¿Quién es Coco? Who? We don't know her. Who is Coco? I froze. I locked eyes with the little girl. She was so excited and happy to see me. I didn't know her either, but I smiled to be polite, and in that moment it dawned on me. My little sister used to call me Coco when she was very little. I hadn't heard anyone say that name to me in over 30 plus years, and had not thought about that nickname or told anyone about that nickname ever. It was alarming, yet comfortably familiar. The little girl's mother pulled her along up the street, and we went on our way. Years later, my sister is getting really into genealogy and tracing our roots. She says 4 generations back, our dad's family is from that small town outside of Puerto Vallarta. 11 years old, driving 1.5 hours away on a school trip. I see my very uncommon name, first and last, spray painted in reverse, like to be read in a mirror on a train overpass. I have pictures of this to this day. I wonder if it means something, but not sure what. I'm 42 now, still haunts me. When I was a little kid, my dad and I would often sit on the front steps just before my bedtime. He just let me rattle on about whatever was on my mind. I always looked forward to it. So one night, we're sitting there and a big ball of light, sort of a pale yellowish color, flies over the house. It was moving so fast and made no sound we could hear. It was headed straight north and quickly vanished over the trees across the street. I was predictably excited, jumping up and pointing at it. Dad calmly took me by the hand and herded me into the house. He had a brief, hushed conversation with Mom, and I got put to bed. Next morning, when I brought it up, they said I must have dreamt it. Years later, Dad admitted that, yeah, he saw it too, but he still wouldn't talk about it. I was driving to a running workout at 4:30 a.m. and passed the high school stadium near my house. There was a football game being played with a stadium full of fans. It made no sense at all. I kind of wonder if I was hallucinating. To this day, I don't know why that was happening then. New Year's Eve, 2016. I'm out downtown with my younger brother and a bunch of our friends. We're out bar hopping and having an excellent night. I get this awful, panicked, sinking feeling in my gut that says, my mom is dead. With no words exchanged, my brother looks at me and says, I think Mom just killed herself. I'm instantly on the phone trying to get through to her. I call around 5 times with no answer, just praying to anything to move me to a different universe where this isn't happening. Then she picks up. She says she's fine and just had a few too many drinks, asks us how our night is going, wishes us a happy new year. I will never be able to shake this feeling or that experience. It was like a mutual nightmare. On a lighter note, I have a fun ability to predict what my dad ate for dinner. The other night, I had a weird, intrusive thought of my dad eating frozen lasagna while watching TV in the living room, so I messaged him saying, I will make a prediction that you had lasagna for dinner. The response, how did you do that? I prefer the less scary premonitions. Little late, but when I was younger, I always saw the same person in my dream. It wasn't the generic man picture all over the internet. The person was hunched over, much more than normal, and had massive teeth and eyes. These dreams slowly turned to nightmares, and I was very scared. One morning, I woke up after having a normal, not scary dream, and there it was, for a split second. After I had that experience, I never had a dream of it again. So that's good, I guess. TL, doctor. I saw my nightmare when I woke up, and then I never saw it in my dreams again. I dreamt about a friend of mine I hadn't met in more than a year, COVID. In my dream, we were in a dining room, but time and space didn't exist. We were sitting around a round table, raised our glasses in commemoration, and she looked happy. The next day, she texted me asking to meet for dinner. We sat around a round table, we raised our glasses, and she looked as happy as in my dream. I remember it was during a drought in California around a decade ago. I woke up one morning and our entire backyard was overgrown with grass and weeds, when the previous day it was barren completely. We had no milk in the fridge, but had gained a jug of fruit punch, an entire untouched gallon. My dad drove me to the store to go get more milk, and we were talking about how much we love the stuff and how it's one of the only things we always keep in the house and never let go empty. We pull into the parking lot of our nearby Save Mart and look at the license plate of the car in front of us, and as we're finding a spot, something along the lines of "I love/like milk too." Can't remember the exact sequence of digits. I was a kid. We both were stunned, speechless, and brought it up in shock for years to come. My parents got the house exorcised by a priest. My mom claimed that seeing demons and being manic were unrelated. We just didn't argue. As the priest walked around the house, suddenly a flood of roaches spewed out from behind the priest, emerging from cracks in the pavement and fanning away from him like a wake, instantly disappearing as soon as they'd materialized. I'd never seen insects act like one perfectly coordinated hive. Roaches scatter erratically and come in different sizes. These roaches were all exactly the same size and color and moved in perfect unison. It happened in seconds. My sister, also an atheist, saw it too, but everyone else had been walking alongside the priest. We later went back to investigate. We never saw a single roach in or around that basement before or since. Obvious explanation would be weird roach coincidence, but I just don't know. It was weird. This sounds pretty silly, but one night during winter break in 2008, I was playing Gears of War 2 with my cousin online. It was around 1 a.m. and my uncle told him to turn it off and go to bed. I went upstairs to go to the bathroom. My room was in the basement, and I looked out of the back door and saw the biggest and brightest full moon I've ever seen. It was like an orange color too. I used the bathroom, and when I came out, I went to look at it again, but it was completely gone. There was no cloud in the sky, but the moon I saw just vanished. Completely clear night, and I felt so weird that the moon just disappeared. I even went outside to look past the house to see it, and I couldn't. I've told this to people over the years, and everyone just says that there probably were clouds and they blocked the moon. I shrug it off too because, like I said, it's something silly. A few months ago, I was looking at my achievements on Xbox and looked at Gears of War 2. The night I was playing with my cousin was December 30th, 2008, so decided to look up the phase of the moon for that day, and it was a waxing crescent, not even close to a full moon. So I really have no idea what I saw in the sky that night. That's no moon. I sometimes know when somebody has died. There's been a few celebrities I felt might, and days later they have. I also get a lot of situations where I feel I've done something or been to a place before I haven't. I knew when my mom would die, guessed the time right. I had the daydreams of her getting cancer before it happened. I felt a vile feeling before we told my nan, uncle, granddad, and dog were dead also. Sometimes I just seem to know, and I hate it. One time when I was a kid, I was playing a board game with my brothers. As we were setting up, I dropped a playing piece onto the carpet and it bounced underneath the bed. When all three of us went to look under the bed, it wasn't there. We looked for it everywhere, even the places that didn't make any logical sense. It wasn't anywhere. The board game piece bounced into the abyss and we never recovered it. A few years ago, I had a couple of friends over my apartment. It was late at night and we were outside smoking cigarettes, having a couple drinks and just talking. One of us saw a plane in the sky and joked about it being a UFO. It was pretty bright and was moving kind of weird, but we didn't think much of it. Again, we only jokingly said it was a UFO. Then a second craft came into view and they were both just kind of flying around with each other. Still figured it was a plane or a helicopter, but because of how they were moving, we were all kind of looking at each other like, no, I'm sure it's not. Then, also, seemingly out of nowhere, what can I only describe as sparks being spewed out of the first craft we saw. It looked like it'd been hit by something midair. That's when we all let out a synchronized "what the fuck?" The craft began to fall, while these sparks continued to spew from it. It was night out, so they were bright against the dark sky. It almost looked like when a transformer blows up and sparks fly from it, but in the sky. By this time, we were bracing for an explosion as it hit the ground. The other craft seemed to be following the first one as it fell. Then it flew in the other direction and took off. We never heard a crash, and we tried searching online for any news of an airplane crash, but we never saw anything. I'm not saying it was aliens, but... TLDR. Weird voice saved autistic sister from drowning. One time, when I was a teenager, I was totally alone in my kitchen, and I had this extremely intrusive, reoccurring thought slamming into my mind, telling me that I needed to check on my older sister. My older sister is pretty severely autistic, has cerebral palsy, and epilepsy. Anyways, I was ignoring this thought, telling me to check on her, and continued my business. But something just kept telling me to check on her. After maybe a minute passed, I heard this, I guess it was a voice, clear as day, like somebody was in the kitchen with me.
Check on your fucking sister. Fucking listen to me. Listen to me.
Needless to say, it struck me hard enough to get me to stop whatever shit I was doing, and I went towards my sister's room, calling for her. It's like I was guided to the bathroom with this weird, watery splashing sound, so I diverted my direction from my sister's room toward the downstairs bathroom. My sister was having a seizure, face down in the bathtub drowning. She wasn't even splashing or anything, so the water sounds are still weird to me. I was able to pull her out, and she was saved. I didn't save my sister that day. That fucking voice saved her. I wasn't even usually home, and my mom was drunk, passed out in her bedroom. This was before I started drinking and using drugs myself, and generally going crazy, so I wasn't hallucinating. Something saved my sister, and I have no fucking clue what. I can only explain it as God. I'll always believe there's a God, but I can't and won't even try to explain the craziness of there actually being some sort of higher power. Sister's alive and happy today, and me and my mom are both sober now. Good. When I was around 16, I had stayed at my best friend's house. Downstairs was the living room, kitchen, dining room, and small bathroom, and upstairs was the 3 bedrooms and a larger bathroom for context. I had went into the bathroom the next morning to brush my teeth, no more than finish up, when I hear Mom call us to come downstairs. I walked into her room to put my toothbrush away and noticed her sitting at her vanity brushing her hair. I don't remember verbatim what was said, but the conversation was short. I said something about her mom calling us, and she said, "Go ahead, I'll be right there." When I got downstairs to her kitchen, she was already sitting at her table. I was very confused. When I asked how she got downstairs, she said she'd been down there for at least 5 minutes. I then explained how that couldn't be possible, because I'd just spoken to her in her bedroom a minute or so ago. They only have 1 set of stairs in the home, and to get to the kitchen before me, she would have to have had passed me on the stairs. She did not. When my friend died, I say friend, but we would have dated if the timing had been better. Feelings were mutual. A few days after his death, I had cried myself to sleep. That night, at some time around 2 in the morning, I woke briefly and felt somebody's hand resting on my head, but it didn't bother me because I felt like I knew who it was. For the first time after his death, I slept soundly without waking up multiple times during the night. I had a dream, weird details aside, that my wife's friend was having an affair and going to leave her husband, and their basement had flooded, so we came over to help. I told my wife. We laughed. Then she was telling her friend about it, and her friend shockingly admitted she was having an affair, and 2 years earlier, the basement of their townhouse flooded. After that, they kept pestering me if I had dreams like that before, which I have, just not to that level of secretive stuff. Fast forward several years, friend gets remarried. My wife and I have a child, and friend and new husband announced they're pregnant too. A couple months later, I had a dream our child was waving goodbye to a friend, and everything felt sad. The next day, friend went to a hospital to find out her baby was missing several chromosomes for developing a normal heart and brain, and the rest is just sad news. I felt so awful for them, because they're wonderful people, and they were so excited to have a baby too. I'm going to make this incredibly short. I turned and drove on a road that didn't exist. I felt weird turning onto it, and as soon as I did, all electronic devices ceased to function, and the gauge cluster froze up. I was driving a big rig that had electronic logs. The logging department called later that day with questions. Apparently it spit out a ton of errors. A dark, shadowy figure is what pointed me to the road. Was on it for what felt like an hour. This was on State Route 220 in North Carolina. The road looked like it was paved an hour ago with 0 signs and a single dotted yellow line down the center all the way through. No guardrails, and the forest came right up to the road. A few years ago, I was sitting on the couch with my little brother. I was holding my old black rubber iPod case. I accidentally dropped it on the carpet, but when I bent down to pick it up, it had completely vanished. I looked everywhere for it, under the couch, under the cushions, under me, under the carpet, but nope, it was gone. I looked for it every day, but no luck. Then, a few weeks later, I found it behind one of the couch legs. I don't know how it got there, and I'm 100% sure that I checked there before. I brushed it off that my little brother kicked it, but now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure he was sitting on my knee or right beside me, still kinda spooked.